Shalom, shalom.
Hey, shalom, shalom,
Shalom, shalom.
and welcome back to the Fourth Principle Podcast. I'm one of your hosts, Malak bin Adonai, and so good to be back this week. I was out last week. I was a little under the weather, but it's all good. Back with the family.
Okay.
So, to anyone that might be listening and tuning into the podcast this week, first we want to apologize for any of the technical difficulties that may have been out there. We're working through some of the audio and visual equipment that we have. So if you're tuning in and you can't hear us, just please bear with us. We're gonna get it together. All right. So we just gonna get right back into our topic from last week. We were talking about religion and spirituality, and how this works with the family structure. We were looking at traditional values and contemporary ideals, and kind of where we are today. If my memory serves me correct, we landed somewhere last week in the family venue. So we wanna pick back up with that, and obviously if you're out in the audience, if you got something, please send it our way, and we can have more to build on in this episode. Toda.
Thank you.
Okay.
I know last week we kind of got into how hip hop kind of, I want to say revolutionized, but shifted the dynamics from the Western Christianity, since I think we said that Christianity was one of the predominant religions in the West or here in the United States. I'm trying to see the percentage I had. I think it was 40%. 40% Protestantism, 21% Catholicism, 2% Mormonism, and 1% Christian, and 29% unaffiliated. So, Sifu Mike was here. He mentioned how in the 70s it was a big shift, right? And we kind of talked about that. And I think we all agreed that it seemed like hip hop was a catalyst, or the, how can I put it? The catalyst that kind of moved people into different directions when it comes to looking outside of that, if you want to say, Christian bubble. Whether it be Islam, Hinduism, Hebrew Israelites, Judaism, and all other types of spiritual systems that's out there. As these brothers, I think Zokane mentioned, the brothers were in college, they started rubbing shoulders with other people, other ethnicities, and so on and so forth, which they put into the music.
Right.
Which caused that generation to seek.
Right.
So, where do we go from here?
When he mentioned the hip hop scene, well, let me not say the hip hop scene, but when he mentioned that dynamic and it being a link that we probably had in some form of our cultural experience, I thought that was pretty spot on. I remember, was it? I might have been like 12 or something like that. And like for me, like, I was I'm from Houston. So that's a different type of, venue down there. But, I remember some of the rappers back then, dropping a few gems in their lyrics, and like obviously it probably became later, but like, for me it was like a UGK thing. So like I would hear, Pimp C had a side to him or whatever the case may be, but there was times when he definitely dropped something that had you like, what? Like, what's he talking about here? And as a matter of fact, I think one of the songs was called High Life.
Okay.
And in that song, he was he was going in, he's talking about some, some differences in the church, but he, kind of segued into a path that was leaving some knowledge for you to go research. And I think hip hop was just, it was and it still is one of those venues that we utilize that, in its own way, it still educates and, promotes some form of conscious ascension.
Mom.
Yeah, I lost my train of thought. So
You were talking about when they was bringing new ideas in, because you're from down south,
Right.
So it's a little different from especially from your era versus my era anyway. So it was a little different. Probably when you got it, I don't know how old you was at 12. When was that?
Oh, 12 that was like early 90s.
Right. So right, you know what I'm saying? So my era, like I say, when I fell in love with hip hop was when Planet Rock came out, and I think Planet Rock came out in 1980. So I'm a little bit
But
in the backside.
it wasn't just in hip hop. It was also like in a lot of R&B too.
Yeah, because it started changing.
Yeah.
Because they started putting a lot more hip hop into R&B at that
Yeah.
time. So
I got you.
and also when you're talking about in the late 80s, they started, you had the fight the power movement, or the
we all in the same gang on the West Coast.
you know what I'm saying, we power to the people.
Right.
But then you saw I want to say governmental officials taking notice, so they had to get with these entities or these record labels and say, hold up, yo, they getting too much knowledge out of this hip hop thing. So they had to bring in something else, and that's where you start to see the gangster rap come into play.
Somebody might say that's a conspiracy theory.
I mean, they could say that, but that's what happened. I'm just saying, because if you look at it, before NWA, right? Let me get back. I'm kind of fresh on my hip hop a little bit at that age. There was a group before NWA that did gangster rap, and I think it was called Just Ice. This guy named Just Ice out of New York, and he was a little more gangster with his.
Wait, my posse on Broadway?
No. That's my man in Seattle. But this guy named Just Ice, he was a little more gangster with his rhyming. You know what I'm saying? And there was another group out there with Just Ice that did gangster rap, but it wasn't played as much. You know what I'm saying? A lot of the consciousness of who we were as a people was being played at that time, or party style type music at that time.
Okay.
Until you start hearing the NWA, then you start hearing a lot more gangster stuff, especially when you're talking about coming into the 90s. That's when the gangster, portray came into play in hip hop. So to me, it changed because you start hearing a lot more of that than versus, who we are as a people, or waking the minds up of a people.
So, okay. Looking at it from, if you want to say religiosity or spirituality, would you all say that that's how it's been since, when we look at historically, you look at, go back to ancient Rome, Greece, it seems like when something comes out, it's always, if we're talking about the fourth principle,
Right.
polarity. Something is thrown in the mix, and it's left up to those who are involved or taking a part of it to choose what polarity they want to take on in their character and their being. One could say, and not a conspiracy, I'm just proposing a perspective. It's like, wow, at first they were trying to stop the so-called gangster rap.
Right.
The explicit lyrics.
Right.
I think that wasn't even gangster rap. I think that was Luke.
Oh
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
Yeah, he's the one that they went to court and everything, and they came out with the explicit lyric sticker on the albums and the
Right.
CDs and so on and so forth. But one could say the establishment saw some type of shift that, from the perspective of the establishment, I mean, of course, we could say it was against the establishment, but it was something that could corrupt the children or the people. So that's why I say, is it a conspiracy theory based on a perspective?
Right.
Because one would say, well, no, the music was is waking people up, but at the same time, you have a dynamic that's thrown in there that's one could say is like gangster rap, or is this good for the children, for anybody to listen to, as far as to keep promoting that state of consciousness.
Right.
So, and I'm just being angel's advocate. One could say, well, wasn't the government merely trying to look out for the people?
Yeah, somebody could say that.
Somebody could say that.
Right.
Yeah.
But because the majority of the people look like us, we could say, well, no, they were against us. So, again, going back to his historicity, or historically, you had Yeshua, Jesus, and certain sayings that went against the grain, that the establishments were saying, okay, this is not good for our society or for our people. This is teaching the people to rebel.
But I guess you could probably say later, that
Say that word again. Later or later?
Later. I'm sorry. The destruction would actually be promoted, right? So like, there was a man. I gotta find this professor, but so take for an example, right? When a certain music that comes out that explicitly targets or promotes some type of violence towards let's say me against you,
Okay.
right? And there's songs that promote that, or promote some type of deviant behavior, right? That's actually that would actually get promoted, because it was engineering a certain type of thought process that
Right.
coincided with a larger scheme of maneuvers, right? So like, and we'll have to get into this now, right? But like, let's say prison industrial complex, different things that actually put us at, when I say us, I'm saying, perhaps people of color, put them at a, what some would consider, every statistical disadvantage that you can think of. And that would actually be the recourse for several labels that are in the hip hop industry who are not owned by anybody that looks like us.
Okay.
So, you were saying that, well, somebody could say, well, the government was, looking out for us, or, they were against us, right? I guess it just all depends on the time frame. Because later on, that would be like, it was it's the complete opposite.
Right.
Like that's what's
promoted.
That's
what
promoted.
gets the airplay.
That's what gets the airplay.
Right. Because it sells.
Because it sells.
Right.
Not necessarily, hey brother, like if you you are one of the gods of the earth, right, or something like that. Maybe not so much.
Right. So streamlining it back to family and relationships, family building, and so on and so forth. How do you feel like ultimately it's all affects us?
Which part?
If we were talking about hip hop, or even the topic title.
I mean, so like, with hip hop being one lane, right? It has its effect in both polarities. You know what I'm saying? So like, there are brothers and sisters who are delivering their poetry, right? Whether it be in, musical format or whatever, to promote consciousness awareness. And then you got others of us who are promoting consciousness degradation through what they're saying.
Right.
Right. And it could all be based on, how they understand their own consciousness. And hip hop, it is, if you want to use the word, like we kind of went through the definitions of religious and spirituality, you know what I'm saying? But it is probably, one of the more pervasive outlets that we have to connect to religious entities, right? Or, spiritual awareness.
Now, how do you think this affects traditional values and contemporary ideas?
So give me a traditional value.
Yeah.
Like I said last week, a traditional value definitely depend on the culture that you say that you come from.
Yeah.
So being like myself, being from the islands, the Caribbean islands, and then coming to the United States, Christian family, in my adulthood, all that segued into the Hebrew Israelite. Some would even call it a Jewish frame of thinking. It's like, let's just say, I'm just gonna pull a random topic: modest dressing.
Yeah.
How does hip hop affect the perspective of dressing modestly, and how does that affect the family structure?
I mean, well, obviously, we're influenced by what we see.
Okay.
So, let's just say dressing modestly, right? That's not really tied to like getting money.
To getting money.
No.
So
like, hip hop has a culture and a dress to it,
Right.
right? There are certain attires, right, that drive a certain state of awareness.
okay.
You know what I mean? So if you want to use dressing modestly as one, right? I don't really know if what I see in hip hop is what we consider modest by definition.
Okay, now that's current.
Yeah.
Well, and it's been like that for several years.
Several years.
So I would have to ask, so Kane, like, okay, when it started, from what I see and when they show old videos and, what I saw in the 80s, you still had people.
Covered up.
They were covered
To a degree.
to a degree. They were flashy,
Yeah.
Okay.
gold chains, rings, gold teeth. Unless at a part where you could dress like I don't want to say a bum, but regular and be like
Right.
a hot rapper.
But I think that a lot of that style was attached to status.
What
What do you mean?
So like, normally, people dress in certain vernaculars, right, to promote their social status.
Okay.
And I don't think that that's a dynamic that has changed over time, right?
Right. Okay.
The demonstration of your social status is, okay, this is where I'm at, right? So like, if you see me, if I got gold teeth, with diamonds in them and stuff like that, I got four finger
Rings.
rings, the gold ropes,
Turkish links.
all that kind of stuff, right? Then you know what? I've made it, or at least it
Okay.
looks like I've made it.
Right.
Whatever that means to somebody else.
So, from what I understand, right, hip hop was started from people that were, one could say, down pressed, downtrodden, different terms of that. They weren't really the ideal in society, and they took nothing and turned it into something.
Right.
The whole concept of taking some records and scratching them.
Right.
You see what I'm saying? And then going from that to having parties and DJing and so on and so forth. So the status is like, look, I don't have anything, but I could make it. I've turned that not having into look at me now.
Right. And that's something to have when you've never had anything.
Right. Which is the American way.
It's a way.
Or, that way.
It's interesting, the whole concept of it. So I've met people throughout my military career and being in the Navy, right? And, I've heard them tell me stories about go to America, the streets are paved with gold. And as a child, I'm talking about they were a lot older when I spoke to them, but as a child, they believed it.
Right.
and that their family believed it. Like, yo, go to America. It's money there. It's you know, we live in a third world, as they call it, whatever world country. America's where it's at. And the dream, of course, is getting a nice big house with a white picket fence and a dog, and so on and so forth. That was, I guess, from a Eurocentric perspective, that was the American dream. You know what I mean? And a lot of people that look like us, we didn't really see that, and we didn't necessarily. I'm not speaking for all. I'm speaking for some that didn't come from that. So they had to, like I said, take nothing and turn it into something. And like I said, during that time, it was a big shift in the family dynamics.
Right.
Yeah, it's a big difference, especially when you see you may not be doing as well as most of those rappers, but they weren't doing all that well either. It's just maybe a step above, not even a step sometimes, but they had to look the part. So in that structure versus hip hop versus the traditional family at that time, it was we I don't know about nobody else, but here we dressed. We had like you had to have your duck heads on, your penny loafers, your button downs and stuff like that, and then you can switch it up.
Right.
And bring your hip hop style in. You had your tracksuit, your Adidas tracksuit, or your Nike tracksuit with your Pumas on, or with your shell toe Adidas on. Right. But you still had the fashion. The fashion has always been in what they would call African American culture, especially up to, I'm gonna say probably around about from the 20s on up. It's always been a fashionable thing. Now, and I think a lot of that come from, being in a downtrodden state that you didn't have anything. Right. But now, once you can get more money, you start dressing a little better. You start to go out and I look at that fashion, I want that fashion. So right. with the structure of it, of course it changes.
Right.
But we always dressed up on Easter Sunday.
That's true. And No, I think I'm gonna be angel's advocate in this today. I look at
in this episode.
When I say again
in this episode,
when I look at a lot of things in the past, I see, for example, let's say the 20s, moving forward, I see a lot of brothers with button ups, ties, pants to the waist, and for those of you who don't know, your waistline actually starts where your belly button is. Right. Take a line and go all the way across. So yeah, your pants is high up on your waist. Shine shoes, hats, fedoras, so on and so forth. And I'm talking about from the older men to young men. Mm-hmm. And as I come up to the walks, when I say the walks, I'm talking about like Montgomery, Alabama in the 60s and so on and so forth. I still see this. So how do we go from that state, and we're talking about the church. Now, they're still in the church state. And we hit the 70s, the hip hop arrives, and I understand there's been influences and so on and so forth. But now we got young men with their pants below their butts.
Right.
I'm not knocking anybody for it. I'm just saying it's a very different mindset. When you come to family dynamics, family relations, so on and so forth, and sometimes it could be cringeworthy.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
I think that. Oh, go ahead.
Well, a lot of that. I'll say this, and this is just me coming from because I came up in the 80s as a teenager. We didn't dress like that. We didn't have our clothes hanging off us like that. But it was a group of people that did that. It wasn't us. Okay. We didn't dress like that. When we step out, we were clean. You had your stuff buttoned up, you were neat. But I've seen other groups, they pants down. Mm-hmm. This is in the 80s. We didn't do that. I don't know if we ran around to try to copy them or whatever, but I don't know. I don't know where it came from. I'm about to say this. They were doing that because I was there. I know.
Right.
Because you can, they're in school with us, mm-hmm. especially with me. They was in school. At my school, when I was a teenager, it was more them than us. You know what I'm saying? I didn't go to an all black school. I came from Norfolk, which is kind of like more African American people in it, but I ended up moving to Chesapeake, so you have a lot more, Caucasian people there. So, and the school I went to at that time, it was more them there than versus us.
And you saying they pants were sagging?
And they pants be sagging. Yo, I didn't. I'm coming from. Let me tell you, I came from Norfolk, and Norfolk at that time was it was, especially when you went to school. Yo, it was like, you got to dress when you come to school.
Right.
You got to have your stuff right. And that's how we always played it. But when I went over there and I was looking at that, I was like, man, what is that? But you saw the brothers, we were still clean.
Okay.
Pants up, looking good, looking fresh, looking whatever. But those, the Caucasian, they weren't rolling like that.
That's interesting, because I always, it's always been rumored that, it comes from like more of a prison mentality.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Sagging pants and so on and so forth.
Yeah.
But now the dynamics is, the women accept it.
Yeah.
Or young women. I don't know about older women, but
Right.
I seen some. That's it's an acceptable way of carrying oneself. And I want to know, is that a part of the hip hop culture? Is that a part of just the African American culture? Like, what is that?
I think that it's attached to a social status. So normally,
Quantify that, sir.
so normally, like what's pervasive and what's seen on TV and what's attached to dollar signs and nice houses and nice cars, everything that's very material is are in most cases people that if we just using music as one lane, right, are people that dress like that. You know what I mean? So like, so for an example, right, like a lot of the young people that I see in my profession, right, like the goal is to like get your lyrics on paper so you can make it,
Okay.
right? And like that's how they dress. I see like very, very big, huge bubble coats and very, very tight pants that don't fit around the waist.
Say it one more time. Sorry.
So one outfit I've seen before is like a very, very huge bubble coat,
Right.
a shirt that might be too small, and pants that are not symmetrical with your waistline.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? And again, like that idea or that the value that's placed on that style of dress, I think that is attached to, the idea of a certain social status.
Okay. So, man, so would you say modern, because you could say hip hop, then you could say like the industry, that industry. It's like it went from art imitating life. We're rapping about situations and circumstances, right? And as we move forward in time, it's like, okay,
Spirituality and things to be what they are today. I still find it, I'm still amazed at times when I hear people say, I didn't even know somebody like you existed.
that's interesting. But they do say, when the student's ready, the teacher will appear.
Right.
So, to each in his own time. But yeah, I agree with you. I think that's why we have this podcast, to kind of like let people know that people like us are out here, and there's a lot more than us.
Right.
A lot more than us. And the more you focus on this frequency or vibration, the more you keep finding more, or more keeps coming.
Right.
So it's about, realizing that there's other states of consciousness out there. And then once you find that you want to change or shift your environment, your situation, your mind state, it's really holding on to that thought and focusing on it. And as you focus on it, that outsource of energy actually draws or attracts those of like minds to you. The same way that when you focus in noise, confusion, pain, hurt, suffering, degradation, so on and so forth, you draw more of that to you. So, they say it's a law of attraction. Like attracts like. What you focus on, you magnify. So whoever's out there listening, change or shift your focus on what you want. And when I say what you want, I'm not just talking about material things. I'm talking about like your soul, like what's your soul's desire as far as, seeking the face of the Creator, whatever that means to you.
Right. Need to ask yourself who you are. Who am I?
You know what?
What I'm here for.
I was reading something earlier this week, right? And to a point that Zach was making earlier, he said that there's a shift in awareness, right? And like if you find yourself in this shift of awareness, but you can't identify like what that feeling is, right? Some questions that might come up in your head is like, okay, well, who am I? Why am I here? And what am I put here to do?
Right. The ultimate questions.
They are, because like, most of us, myself included, right? I remember for a long time, and even still sometimes today, right? I take things for granted. I try not to, right? But I get caught up in the daily routine.
Likewise.
You know what I'm saying? And it's for me to explain this in a very basic way, right? Like, I may be physically present in a space or with other people, right? But I recognize that my spirit is trying to do something else. You know what I mean? It's trying to attune itself to another frequency, and like I can feel it, and it's distinguishable because I've never felt anything like that in my life, right?
Is it describable?
Yeah, so it's like, for me, certain so like if anybody know me, right? Like I like nice stuff.
Yeah, we know.
I like nice stuff. But that's diminishing for me. And I know that's a difference for me because I like nice stuff. You know what I'm saying? I really do. But I was sharing with Zach, earlier this week. I was like, look, yo, listen, if I had to describe something that I really want, I just want to be able to pray uninterrupted within myself. You know what I'm saying? Like without falling asleep or something to that degree. You know what I mean? Those type of things, they've increased in value for me. Whereas before they were important, right? Or they had some level of importance, but not like it is now.
Okay. Now, how do you relate that to family and the family structure?
I think that it's going to be different for everybody in the family. You know what I'm saying? Because I don't know that. Well, I say this. You may have influence on the consciousness of your family members, but you definitely don't control it.
Because they move how they want to move.
Yeah.
And you have to allow them to do it too.
They move according to their conscious progression.
Right.
And I'm just in a place where I gotta really respect other people's conscious progression.
While also respecting yours.
Right.
Because sometimes people, they get to that place and they're so busy respecting everybody else's progression that they neglect their own. So, yeah, in that seeking, it's like seeking for that discernment of, how do I find balance? Because that's what our family is there for. Our family is there to provide us catalysts for our spiritual growth and also for us to find balance within ourselves and our environment around us.
Right. I mean, and again, like, that's one lane for the family structure and its ties to spirituality and, religious sentiments and so on and so forth. That's one lane.
It's like the dynamics keep shifting. It's like when you think you're at a certain place, creator source, higher self, it just sends you a whole new degree of learning.
Right.
For me, it's more like a hermit phase right now.
So
You know.
you in the shell,
I'm in the shell, in the pocket, as I like to say.
in the pocket.
And just like you said earlier when we spoke, the thought is, okay, I've been accumulating knowledge, information upon information with the intent to get somewhere. Like, but am I losing myself in the present moment and trying to project to this, okay, if I do this and I do that and I read this and I read that and I practice this and I practice that, I'll attain this. But not realizing that it's all right here, right now. It's no definitive line that you cross to get from this point to the next point. It just unfolds because you're technically already there. You're just not aware of it yet.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And for me, it's really now getting to a place of allowing. Just got sent something.
Allowing.
And what I'm saying is, I just got sent something that says powerful habits to change your life. That's interesting. It's random, but it's based on what we're talking about now.
Right.
It's like I'm realizing that habits that I have is based on projecting.
Right.
And now I am focusing on, okay, let me just be still a little bit. And how do I disseminate that to my family or those around me?
Which, it's hard to do because when they have their own lane or way, they take forth their way. Now, not saying that they're listening to the spirit of self or they're moving in their own way that they want to go.
Right.
And it may not be of spirit.
That's interesting.
But it could be, if I want to look at the fourth principle.
Right.
It could be. So when you're to a point of being a hermit, what you were saying, right?
Yeah.
I think that's me anyway, right?
Okay. Right.
I'm always that way. But now I try to find myself getting out, moving a little bit more. Now, I'm always trying to get back home though. You know what I'm saying? Always, I might go somewhere and be like, yeah. But I'm always thinking about, I got to get back home.
Because home is where you recharge.
Yeah, right. So when you're in that state or in that place, you're recharging, which you thinking that if I'm recharging other things or anything else that comes around me. Mm-hmm. So when you're starting to recharge things around you, hopefully it changes other people because, like you say, light attracts light.
And that's what I was gonna say. So like when you out and about, right? Or it's clear to me that there are different stages and different progressions with others. You know what I'm saying? And with ourselves. Right? So I think that as you ascend up, right, at the same time you're ascending up, you also absorb other consciousness based on the spheres that you're in. And that could be the working groups that you're in, the social groups that you're in. You know what I'm saying? It's like going into a place and, and let's just say your light is shining. And as it's shining, I think that you also absorb as well. Hence the reason why, you might want to come back home. So go ahead.
I was just gonna say I agree because I know that's a fact for me.
I got you.
When I go out, and for those of you who understand what I'm saying, you get it. For those of you, we'll talk about it on another podcast. It's like when I go out, I shield myself, I protect myself because I've become in the past couple of years more sensitive, or what's that word? Empathetic.
Empathic, yeah.
Empathic. Like when I get around people or to a space, I could feel people's pain. Let I say, oh, my arm, my hand, and coincidentally, if you want to use that word, I might look at a person and say, is your hand hurting? And they'd be like, oh, yeah, I hit it or bumped it yesterday or whatever the case may be. And it's kind of, so I definitely know that sometimes we're going through stuff, we're dealing with our family or not, or whatever the case may be. And you go to places and you think it's random, but sometimes you're actually being sent somewhere.
Right.
So it's very, going back to what O'Kane said, and I'm adding to it, it's very important that you make sure that the environment that you're in, that you live in, or where you reside,
Right.
is in a state of peace. It's kind of like you guys know Green Lantern, superhero.
Right.
Yeah.
He's got a battery,
Yeah.
right? But he's got his ring,
Yeah.
and the only weakness of his ring is really fear.
That's interesting.
Y'all get that?
That's
For those of you
interesting.
watching, I hope you get it. The only weakness that he has is fear. His ring is powered by will. His willpower.
Right.
And it does get drained. And he has to go. He carries around a mobile battery pack, but they also have a whole place that they go to recharge. So I'm saying that to say, like, yeah, we're sent sometimes. We don't know. We think it's random. Oh, I want to go to the supermarket. Oh, I got to go pick up some things. I'm going to go to the mall and just walk around and meet people or whatever. Right. But pay attention to the people that you meet while you're in your travels, right, and the conversations that you have with them.
Right.
And sometimes you feel like, man, I'm tired or I'm drained or whatever.
Yeah. So,
and that's how you got to get home.
let me ask you a question.
Go ahead.
How did you feel last week?
When we went out,
No, when you came to my house.
Actually, I kind of shielded when I got there, because when I got there, when I pulled up, I was like, man, I didn't expect this many people.
Oh yeah.
And I kind of like shielded myself, and I went in. I just kind of chill.
Right. Did you sense other
Energies?
energies?
There's a lot of different energies.
Yeah.
Moving around.
Yeah.
One person, I think he saw me. I don't remember his name. He had like a gash in his head.
Yeah.
What's his name?
Yeah. That's Itia's nephew.
Yeah.
I know you're
I was just kind of looking, and he looked at me, and I just kept looking at him, and he was like, "Are you good? You good, bro?" I'm like, "Yeah, I'm good." And it's just observing, and he's like, "I'm such and such and such." I'm like, "I'm Kazak."
Right.
He said, "All right, nice to meet you."
Right.
And it was just different energies, feeling it, watching them just flow around you.
Yeah, I know, right? I would do the same thing. Trust me. Because a lot of times I'm not around them a lot.
Right.
So, but when I come around them, it's interesting. I
You can feel the
enjoy
shift.
myself.
Right.
I enjoy myself, but I see certain energies that I really don't. I'm not gonna say I don't dwell with. That it doesn't attract me to them.
Right. It's
saying?
a discernment that you get.
Yeah. Not saying that I don't like them or,
Right.
or whatever like that. No, I get along with basically anybody.
Right.
If you can't get along with me, it's more likely it's probably my mouth got in the way or something. Because I said something that you may not like, but
Right.
I still like you. It doesn't matter. But yeah, it's almost like, especially when you having stuff at your home, you have to do a lot of clearing.
Yes.
When you before and after.
Yes.
You know what I'm saying? So because certain things just like to hang around, especially when it sees light. When it sees light, it lights that. Just it hangs around for a while. So, sometimes you just gotta clear certain things out, when things leave and stuff like that. I know one person was like, I don't know how y'all do it. They were worried about the furniture. I wasn't worried about the furniture.
Right.
Furniture used to be my thing for years. I don't worry about the furniture. I don't worry about them putting cake on the furniture or
Right.
whatever. I don't worry about that. Because when y'all leave,
It'd be taken care
believe
of. Right.
I'm in there. I'm doing what I do to if it's messed up.
So just taking even just what we talked about,
That's
you know what
family.
I'm saying? That's family.
That's right.
Taking what we just talked about and now putting it into the topic and the title, right? We're looking at a whole different type of contemporary spirituality, or it's almost, one could say it's like we have our own individual religion, or of course it's our own individual type of spiritual, how we not project, but how we move in spirit. Right. So somebody could say, oh, that's the religion of Malak. or that's the religion of Zokane, Yazakar, that's the religion of Kazakh.
Or
And I was
religion of Tao.
religion of
Tao.
Tao.
The Tao or Taoism just
Gotcha.
means the way.
Right, the way. So bringing it forward and looking at, like, man, we have so many things playing out in our society. Like, for those who are watching, how can we encourage? I don't even know if I want to use the word teach, but like give them guidelines or structures of how to carry that out for themselves.
Hold on, let me look something up real quick.
Well,
Okay.
I would say some things is we can always go back to prayer, meditation, eating certain foods, breathing properly.
Breathing.
You know, I heard some earlier this week from a guy that's, you know, big on eating. His wellness thing is from eating properly or what
Right.
have you, and he said something profound about you're not getting enough oxygen to your cells, right?
Right.
So, you know, my first thought, since I do breath stuff things, well, you're not breathing properly to get enough oxygen to your cells.
Right.
Now, it could be from food too. You know, you can get oxygen from those foods and everything like that. But when we're looking at the whole catalyst of that healing process, those are the steps I would encourage people to do. Like going into, you know, food health, yoga, meditation, breathwork journeys, breathwork meditations, breathing properly, always, you know, be on your mind or your frontal lobe to breathe properly. If you know how to. You know, some people may not know how to.
Right.
You know, so those things would probably have to be taught or shown to someone how to do it.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? So with that, that's what I would begin with.
Okay.
You know what I'm saying?
Malak. Well, I mean, I could go while you.
Yeah, go ahead.
For me, for anyone that's listening, going through it again, I'm gonna always reaffirm this: going through a spiritual awakening, or just trying to seek understanding, and with all the things going on in the world today, first I would say is prayer. Absolutely, prayer. If you believe in a higher power, whatever you call that higher power, you know, that is your power. You know, your belief and trust in that higher power is tantamount in moving forward. So prayer is first and foremost. Number two, and I'm giving you the order that my spiritual support team, some would say spirit guides or angelic beings, have told me. Open your heart. Learn to love. And I know some of you are saying, well, I do love, because I said the same thing. I do love. But when you really start asking yourself, what is love? How do you love? Do I love? You have terms like unconditional love, unselfish love, and then you have conditional love. You know, learn to love and find out what love is, because a lot of us, we consider love a situation based on fear, control, and guilt.
Right.
Right? I say it again. A lot of people think that love is based on fear, control, and guilt. You know, somebody will guilt you, put you on a guilt trip, especially if they know you the most. You know, family members, husband and wives, so on and so forth. You know, fear. Oh, if you don't do this for me or whatever the case may be, I'm going to leave. You know, or, oh, well, you do that if you want to. You see what's going to happen. That's fear.
Right.
And then guilt, you know, well, I mean, if you don't want to, I mean, it's okay. I guess I'm just going to have to just go over in this corner and just cry or whatever. But look at what you consider love and what it's based on. Or is it and and it's all based on health, and the spirit will give you discernment on what unconditional, unselfish is versus conditional or selfish love. So I'm not gonna in this segment go into that, but look into that. Like so Kane said, breathing and meditation. One of my favorite types of meditation is focusing on the breath. A lot of people say, well, I tried meditation, it doesn't work for me. Well, how many times did you try? Because anytime you want to do something, you take the time to practice it. Whether it be a sport, art, music, whatever, practice or perfect practice makes perfect. So practice. Don't try it once or twice and say, oh man, I keep thinking about stuff. I can't stay focused on my heart, on my breathing. No. When you mess up and you start thinking about something, in that moment, recalibrate and go back to focus on the breath. So I'm gonna leave it there. I don't know how much time do we have left.
We just said about 60 minutes.
Okay.
Come on, let's keep on.
He said, "Keep on rolling." So breath work and in the praying meditation definitely. And I have a plethora of books, and people come to me and say, "Brother, you read this, you read that. What do you think I should start with?" I can only go off of my foundation and where I started, and then segued into all the different myriads of different things that I read. I read the scriptures, the Holy Bible, the Torah, the Tanakh. That is my foundation. Now, is that all I stand on? No, it's not the only thing that I stand on. But it is my foundation. It keeps me balanced. That's what I use for me. Now, somebody else, it might be the Quran. That might be their foundation. And I respect that because I have read the Quran. So you have to find out what type of foundation that you want to use for your discernment. Your discernment for what is the highest good for you, or that which is not for your highest good. So I'll leave it at that for now.
Okay.
Yeah, that was good.
Okay. Got something, Odon? I know you just came in the building. My man, what you got?
Do we need to bring you up to speed?
That would be much obliged. But I'm just listening. We talking about breathwork, meditation, things. How?
Well, we're talking about like if somebody's watching the show, they're going through a spiritual awakening, and they're trying to figure out what to do with all the things that we see. We kind of talked about the hip hop, and how it was when it first started, and how it is now.
Right.
How it's influencing the youth. And it's a lot of things going on that some could say is negative in the world, even in the music and in the industry. So if somebody's going through a spiritual awakening, like what would you suggest to like help them find people like yourself or myself or, Zokane, Malak, what should they do?
Well, in all honesty, your spirit guides will tell you what to do. You'll just have an inclination of what to do. You'll have that feeling. There's no specific training or requirement that I will say you have to do this. Like you'll know from inside, like there's a change that's happening, and from there you'll go into different circles. You'll just start meeting new people, and you're like, why did I meet this person? Or dang, that was an interesting conversation. It's something about that's appealing to me. Maybe I need to contact this person more often. I think that's what kind of happened between me and my fellow brothers, or Akeem right here. It's like I met him through my Spanish brother, and then from there I met these other two through him. And next thing you know, it was just like, okay, we was going through a different transition at a time. I think everything was divinely orchestrated and coordinated for the awakening to happen, especially at the different ages of life that we are here. Me being the youngest, and Zokane being the more seasoned, So from there, I think there is no right way. If you're looking for spiritual enlightenment or a transfiguration and your psyche or anything like that. I think with you seeking, you will find it. It's basically law of attraction. And sometimes you don't even seek it. Like, it'll just come to you. Sometimes. Like, it's crazy, you know?
Yeah, and I think that that's the you know, there are some people who like to quantify these types of experiences, right? They have, they meet certain metrics, to be definitive in, how they integrate themselves into this frame of reference, right? And I would suggest that, one thing that Denzel said was, you'll know from within. And that's really the root of the word educate, right? Is to lead from within, right? Which I think might be different from being a teacher. If you're an educator, that's different. If you're a teacher, that's different because the words have different meanings. But on the premise of what Denzel said, right? As you're learning these things inwardly, now you can begin to, you will learn how to organize how you are joining together spirit and truth.
And that's going to be application.
It is. And that's unique for what's developed. That's unique for what's required for your soul development. You know what I mean? So
So we all not saying the same exact thing.
I'm sorry?
So we all don't have to say the exact same,
Well,
the same exact thing.
Even in that, you never do say the same exact thing, right? You know what I'm saying? So there's really no such. Well, let me not say that. Saying the same thing is that can probably be very constricting on the soul because we don't express ourselves the same way. There may be similarities, right? But we know that expression is different for everybody.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Because we all encode and decode differently.
Right.
So with everything that you might be coming into, right, whatever knowledge bases that you're gaining, right, I think that you should welcome the opportunity to organize those experiences, right, and categorize them in how you're, like I said earlier, joining truth and spirit. And yeah, y'all said it all. Y'all said it all already. You know what I'm saying? And to tie it back into the topic, right? We were talking about music being a venue, right? And that being tied to a social status. And, from there, it has its linkages to what we may know as religion or spirituality, right? But, there's no one lane, as the brother said earlier, right? There's no one lane, no set anything, right, to get from point A to point B, right? If you look at a mountain,
being a specific group of muscles.
Right.
And that's what happens. Like, for example, he likes to show initiation. They all like it. I just couldn't get into it. That was just me though.
Right.
But that doesn't diminish my intellect or diminish my journey. It just says, okay, this is not your road for you. Maybe the music is, because there's different sound waves that appeals to the different chakras. You have different megahertz and things that actually draw you in. So maybe it is music, but that's a whole nother conversation in itself.
Right. So let me bounce off you on that. Now we may keep it here in the West or in America, but this is all around the world. We just do it here in America or the Western mind thinking because we're here. Now you can see all of these things play out in other cultures, Africa, Asia, even in Europe. A lot of European individuals, they do a lot of meditation. They do a lot of these things. They starting to do a lot of these things. Has been doing a lot of these things for a while, actually, more than I would say African American, or what we would call African American people.
You think so?
Yeah, I believe. Yeah, I really believe so. Yes. And why I say that, because we as African American people, we have been moved away from certain things,
Right.
and a lot of it has been taught to us as a fear-based type thing. So when we in that state, or in that mind state, to say, well, okay, well, that I don't do that because, somebody told me that that's wrong to do.
Right.
No, it's not that. Why is these other people doing it if it's so wrong? I heard a quote today. I was listening to a video today, and it said, all because you're a Christian doesn't mean you move like the Christ in you. It's people that do Buddhism or any other culture or any religious things that are more Christ than some of these people in the church.
Right.
Yeah, that's because the Christ is a consciousness.
That attaches itself to,
And I think that we all relate to the Christ consciousness,
Right.
because we all come from the one.
I get it, but it's somebody that's possibly watching,
right.
and I'm saying that from experience. About, was it maybe 4 weeks ago? Myself and Seafood, we were at a restaurant eating, and we met some young men that were Christians, and they were trying to proselytize. And the first thing the guy had a book of Tao on the table, and he came over, and he's like, "What's that you're reading?" This is after we said hi, shalom, whatever, and I guess that was a segue for them to say, "Oh, let's go talk to them." He said, "What's that you're reading?" I said, "I'm this is the Way of the Tao." He's like, "Oh, do you believe in that?" I said, "I don't know what you mean by believing it, but I mean, it's principles in here that I definitely understand."
Right.
And I guess since he didn't see any segue to get in that way, he saw my bracelet. He's like, "So what are those? What's that you're wearing?" I was like, "Oh, these are my stones, whatever. Do you trust those? Do you think they protect you?" I was like, "No, I don't use these to I don't trust. I trust in the Creator." But I know where he was going, so I didn't say what I wanted to say. I just said, "I trust in the Creator," which was enough for me.
Right.
And he was like, "Well, I think ultimately in the conversation I mentioned what was just mentioned. Sorry, about
The consciousness.
he's talking about the Christ. I said, "Well, yeah, it's a Christ consciousness." And he was like, No, I was into a lot of things, and I used to be into rap music and so on and so forth. And I accepted Jesus as my Lord and Savior. And I heard about this. I have an aunt; she's into all the crystals and this and that. And it's just that's a new age thing, the Christ consciousness. I said, "Wait, hold on. Don't get lost on the words. Christ is a mindset. You see what I'm saying? And if let's just take away the Christ consciousness word. If you say, what would Jesus do?
Mm-hmm.
Right? You would have to try to be in the mind of Christ to understand or discern what Jesus would do.
Right.
And no matter how much we had these conversations or we were going back and forth, which I really don't like doing, it's like it was another thing. And there was another thing. So I'll just go back to that. It's like, we know what you're talking about.
Yeah.
But
Yeah, all good. So, and yeah, hey, when stuff like that comes up, hey, praise the Lord, man. You know what I'm saying? Like
all praises.
I'm not upset.
And I'm that one that had a conversation with. I had that conversation.
I'm not upset.
You already know.
I'm not upset, man. And I think that in situations like that, right? We get a very, very good demonstration in the levels of consciousness.
yes.
You know what I'm saying? And sometimes I appreciate it. Sometimes I got to work on me.
and a lot of times when you feel that way, that's exactly what that interaction was for.
That's what that was
to
for.
let you know, like, hey, we got some work to do.
Yeah, because it's there's certain areas that I try to stay out of there. You know, you know what I'm saying? And I don't like going back and forth with anybody because I'm not trying to convince nobody.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? But I know what it feels like to be encapsulated by the sensory complex.
I think we all do.
Because you know you won't see anything past that. You know your current perception, you know, won't allow you to go there at this present point in time, and that's not a bad thing. You know what I'm saying? And I think that with other individuals, right, who might be seeking, and oftentimes probably stay away. You know, it could be rooted in some fear of rejection, some fear of whatever, right? And it's like, well, you know, if you're not, you know, brother, you got the beads on, you got the necklaces around your neck, right? They're looking at the outward, when in fact is it not written in your book, right, that the Creator doesn't look at the outward, he perceives the inward contusion of the man.
Right.
So yeah, I mean it's all good though. It's all good.
Yeah. So, you know, like I say, I like having a conversation.
Oh,
'Cause
I know,
Yeah, we already know.
I know you do.
you know,
We already know.
in the process, I may learn something, you know, especially, and I like to do it because I want to see how much I've grown sometimes.
And
Like,
you know what?
I'm at.
Knowing who you are,
Right.
that's spot on.
Right. You know,
Yeah.
and then again, I know what my crown chakra is, which is my throat chakra, which is about listening and speaking. So I'm gonna use it so things won't be held against me for not.
You talking about your master chakra?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, my master chakra.
So for those who are listening, your master chakra is you have 7 chakras in your body or throughout your system. It's actually more, but we're just
yeah.
dealing with the 7. And the master chakra is the actual chakra that in this physical incarnation that you utilize to govern your this existence. Mine is my throat. I'm supposed to speak all that. My mom used to say, "You talk too much."
And that's mine also.
That's your throat, my throat chakra.
Mine is my heart.
Heart.
See.
Malak.
What's that?
Your
And your massive chakra.
master
Your
chakra.
master chakra.
I think it's third.
I think it was his
No, mine was my
his third eye.
my third eye.
Yes.
Yeah,
That makes sense. So
We're gonna have to dive in on that a little bit later.
one of these,
Yeah,
we'll
yeah,
get there one of these days. But for those who are listening, these are some of the things we're talking about. You're like, what are they talking about? It's a lot out there that in your contemporary system you just may not know because we're focusing on words in a page or pages in a book, and you're trying to recapture something that was past. You know, that may have principles that still you should adhere to, but you're trying to envision something that has passed.
Right.
So,
And with that, in that, there's something in that story related unto you
right,
and why you can't do certain things.
right,
You know what I'm saying? I think Adon brought it up the other week is why the children of Israel had to sit at the bottom of the mountain. And you know, it came across me today that, you know, they really weren't ready for that. They weren't ready for that higher or that Christ consciousness
right.
because they still had stuff dealing with
In the root chakra.
in the root
Fear.
chakra.
It's fear based.
And you could tell it if you go into the story, the
Green
whole
Lantern.
story, you go into that whole story, you can see all of that stuff play out while they're in the wilderness.
It's playing.
Jealousy,
Okay, sorry.
rage, anger,
Gluttony.
gluttony, everything is right there.
Wow.
But they weren't ready.
I ain't never seen it like that.
They weren't ready to go up when Moshe went up. Moshe was ready.
right.
He was ready to. It's so much.
Can I use this word?
Go ahead, bro.
He was willing.
Right.
He had the will.
He had the will.
Green Lantern.
You know what I'm saying? And I you know, Man.
And going back to people are trying to encapsulate or capture a mindset that
Right.
didn't work
Right.
back then.
back then with the people that was there.
Right.
Living it, experiencing it, and we're trying to say, "Oh, I know exactly what to do today."
No. Well, you know what? They might know. They might really feel that they know.
But the fruit is in the pudding.
I'm with you.
Did I say that right? The fruit.
What?
The
proof is in
The
the
proof is in the pudding.
What fruit is that?
The proof is in the pudding.
Going on here?
But you know, I want to say there's a verse in the Psalms, Tehillim, might be in chapter 36, where it says that in your light we shall see light.
Right. Right.
You know what I'm saying? We should, you know, so I undertake that, you know, the opportunity has never left for you to do that, to reintegrate into the light.
Right. You want me to read that? I got it up already.
Go ahead. Read.
Oh,
It's
man.
it's the book of Tehillim, or also known as Psalms 36, verse 9, and it reads, "For with thee is the fountain of life.
Yeah.
In thy light shall we see light."
In thy light
You know-
shall we see light.
You know, you see so many themes about the Creator being or likened unto an understanding of light. You know, a consuming fire. You know what I'm saying? Or, you know, this type of light or that type of light. You know, there's many surrounding themes that link the light to the Creator. So, all in all, right, to just kind of nail this back home, you know what I'm saying? It's like, you know, I think you should just allow yourself, right? Allow yourself to reintegrate into what, you know, light.
Mm-hmm.
I mean,
Right.
I can't convince you. I can't compel you. You know what I'm saying? You know, it's just you have to allow yourself to do it. You know what I mean? And if I can encourage anybody, you know, I'm not saying obtaining counsel is a negative thing to do, because it has its time and it has its season, right? But as best as you can, you know, consider, you know, being wrapped around the axle when in considering everybody else's opinion except your own.
Can I say something about getting counsel?
Yeah.
I'm going back to prayer. And I'm being encouraged to go back to prayer. I could feel it. Sometimes counsel doesn't come from anybody that you know.
Right.
You say a prayer earnestly, meaning with your heart, soul, and might. And you may go shopping one day, whether it be in the supermarket or the mall, you're just out and about, and you might meet someone. And that's why you have to be present and pay attention. You may have a conversation with a person and they actually speak to a problem, a situation that you're going through. And that's the Most High sending that person to be counsel for you. It doesn't have to be your pastor, your mom, your dad. I'm not negating them at all. I'm just saying sometimes we think we have to go to these places. But when you pray, you'll be sent. Just like my brother said, it's something to move you to be in a certain place at a certain time, and the right person will be there to speak life into you. You just have to be willing
Yeah.
and aware.
Right.
This might take us somewhere else.
Speaking to the mic, my brother.
But we was talking about light and doing numerology and different things of that nature. We always see light as white light. And then from there, if you put it into a prism or something to refract it, it turns into the color wheel. But a color wheel is 7 colors. Roy G. Biv. We do denote the chakra system. There are 7 chakras
7.
as well. that contain the Roy G. Biv, from red all the way up to the indigo. We see, like you said, we see the Creator in different fractals of light in the scriptures. If you want to call the road to Damascus with Paul and he saw the light, and which that scripture is, but
Right.
I'm just thinking. I just have the thought. I didn't formulate a theory yet, but how the number 7 and the light fractals play a part with each other inside of ourselves as well.
Is this gonna be another topic?
It might be
I mean, we don't have to, but I mean, we can save it.
table.
We could table it.
Yeah.
It
Okay.
needs structure.
All right, fam. So we're gonna table that topic. So I'm gonna remember this because I already had a thought ready to flow. 7. We're gonna do 7 and light. So we're gonna deal with that as we move forward. For those of you watching, definitely we would love your suggestions. Any suggestions, any topics, any thoughts, just put it in the inbox.
Right.
Oh, fourthprinciple7@gmail.com is where you can inbox us,
Oh, you could just hit us on the live,
Right.
or Facebook.
Right. Or just go to YouTube.
And send it to your friends. Get over, subscribe to our channel. We trying to get our audience up, so we want to encourage more viewers to check us out. So
But they say hit the like button.
hit the like
pound,
button.
pound the like button.
Smash.
Smash the like button for me.
And subscribe.
7 times.
Right.
We definitely want to thank everybody whoever's watching. We want to thank you because you could be doing anything else on this Saturday or this Shabbat, as some would say. This day of rest. But you're here with us, listening to us. Share our thoughts and opinions. Anybody have any plugs?
Oh,
Yeah, I sell weed on. I'm joking.
He's joking.
yeah. But for me, look out for the podcast, Breathism podcast. Hopefully it'll be up. Hopefully I'll probably do my first podcast this week. So be looking for that. You can always go at Breathism on my Facebook page on Facebook. Just punch in Breathism, and that's BREATH -IZM, not SM, but IZM. Even on Instagram also. So just be looking for that, and just be looking out for the breathwork journeys. And on that podcast, we're gonna teach. Well, I don't want to say teach. Show the correctness of breathing properly, getting enough more oxygen in the cells that you're gonna need. So, but we'll get to that point.
All right. We appreciate y'all for tuning in.
Shalom.
I didn't do my plug, but okay.
Yeah,
Oh,
go
do your plug. Do your
brother.
plug. Do your
All
plug.
right. I just want to send love and light to my Reiki with Angels family. The teacher, Ellen Malloy.
Okay.
My sister Winnie Jackson.
Okay.
Definitely check them out. Again, if anybody's having any spiritual awakenings, you can go to Reiki with Angels with Ellen Malloy. We work with the angels for your healing and upliftment. So yeah. Holla back.
Right.
Shalom, shalom.
Shalom.
Shalom, shalom, and namaste.